Hazard Pay is on, baby. It's in the third stimulus package and pays $1,500 for people who worked during the pandemic, who made less than $25,000. The Hazard Pay provision becomes law on Tuesday. So how does it work? Who are essential workers? In this throwback video, I explain Hazard Pay, who are essential workers, and the $10,000 Hazard Pay provision of the HEROES Act. Enjoy this overnight LA throwback video on Hazard Pay. Millions now ask, was Hazard Pay a dog and pony show by the Democrats, or did they really ever intend to give you Hazard Pay? Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Afternoons LALATE. Hope you're good and safe. This is Afternoons LALATE, our 2-hour programming block that starts every day with a check, then goes to Hazard Pay, then FPUC, and finally rent eviction. Shocking and almost scandalous news overnight that continued to start on Friday and continued all the way to today. That causes a lot of us to wonder and question whether the Democrats were ever really behind Hazard Pay, or whether it's really a dog and pony show. Let me get right to the details. Hazard Pay, as you've seen with this channel, because I've covered it every single day for upwards of 2 weeks and argued for it and pushed for it and kept the discussion on it for you, I have seen Democrats not talk about it. And I've seen the Democrats who wrote the legislation not talk about it. I've seen them not get behind it or urge its support or give us updates about its negotiation. So where is it and what's going on? Let me get right to the news. Hazard Pay is part of the HEROES Act. Is that enormous fund that creates money, gives money as a form of grant, free money, to people who are essential workers who worked in the pandemic and continue to work for the pandemic. More about the calculations about that in a second. But the question and the thing that always has bothered viewers of this channel over the last couple weeks has been, why is no one talking about it? Why is no one talking about it? Hazard Pay was in the Democrat proposal, but not in the Republican proposal. And we've never heard from a Republican saying that they support Hazard Pay. We've never heard from a Republican that they don't support Hazard Pay. But when it comes to the Democrats who actually wrote the bill, how much support have they voiced about in favor of it? Over the last 3 weeks, you've noticed me cover the instances of when we heard something positive. And we've really only heard Nancy Pelosi, I think twice, mention it in a press statement in the last 3 weeks. The president had those reassuring tweets about a week ago that saying he wanted to order Steve Mnuchin to send out money to provide money to the frontline workers of fire, rescue, medical, and teachers, I believe were the classifications. But no other clarification about what that meant. And that was really it. So as you sit here back, I want you to be a little skeptical for a moment, because that's really what this video is about. You know, do these people really want to give you Hazard Pay? Or was it a dog and pony show? Let me go back to why I think there may be a dog and pony show at issue here. In the last 2 weeks, every press conference that Nancy Pelosi has had, who was, the spearhead of the Hazard Pay section of the HEROES Act, had called for discussion about young children and how they are hungry. Well, Nancy Pelosi has never talked about Hazard Pay during his discussions. Today, she appeared on CNN and she said Americans' children are going hungry. Yesterday, she appeared on the feed out of the House, interviewed by press reporters. Children going hungry. The day before, children going hungry. Every press interview she's had has literally been the same script. As I said, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer got that Broadway bill last week. Hey, Broadway, standalone Broadway bill to help Broadway. Nancy Pelosi's appearing in the revival King and I, where she reads the script every single day, and that same script has been the children going hungry, children going hungry, children going hungry, children going hungry. There's an old saying, when you say things too many times, it doesn't carry weight anymore. And what it appears that Nancy Pelosi is doing is she's using children going hungry as a window dressing for what's in a department store that has stuff behind it that people don't like. And that part that people don't like is certainly the bailout of the states. But the whole thing about children going hungry to sort of appease to people's emotions because there's something behind there that they don't want to hear is not good way to talk. The issue at hand is that Nancy Pelosi is holding up the stimulus package that has the hazard pay in it because of a bailout of states that really were fiscally overrun before the pandemic, states that can go borrow money, that have the ability to go borrow money, that were provided money to go lend upon by the Federal Reserve during their COVID-19 allocations back in May, and that have not gone and borrowed. The Main Street Lending Program was set up for them. I've done, 30 videos on the Main Street Lending Program. Have they gone and gotten the money? No. Do they want to go get the money? No. Why? Because they want free money. They don't want to go lend or borrow. They want free money. Doesn't sound good, does it? No, it doesn't sound good. So instead, Nancy says the children are going hungry. Okay, how about the frontline workers that risk their lives, Nancy? How about the essential workers who risk their lives during the pandemic or continue to risk their lives during the pandemic? How come you never say that, except once? How come 2 weeks ago, Nancy, when you came out of the negotiations in which you're fighting allegedly for hazard pay, you came out of the negotiation and you gave a written statement to members of Congress describing, or to your party, describing what you had offered and what they had offered. Hazard pay was not mentioned. It's not mentioned. Then that day was like a week ago last Friday with the purple poster, the purple poster that matches my shirts. I was so impressed until I saw there was no hazard pay on there. I was like, oh, okay, no hazard pay again. Did she mention hazard pay at the press conference? No. Do you see some familiar going on here? Do you see something recurring? I do. It's just a little obvious. There's no mention of hazard pay coming from the person who's pushing allegedly hazard pay. But children going hungry. Children going hungry, children going hungry. Ignore the fact that states want big bailouts, but I'm going to hold up your stimulus checks and hold up your eviction moratoriums while you become homeless because I need to fight for that thing for the states, like Cuomo and Noose and Gavin. I need to fight for that, but children going hungry. Oh, and, don't ask me about essential workers. What do you think? Drop in the comments below. I think that there's a very deep worry as we sit here today that hazard pay was a dog and pony show by the Democrats, or at least for the purposes of Nancy Pelosi's negotiations, that Nancy Pelosi really never intended to get you hazard pay, that she put it in there, it looked really good, and that it was one of those, hey, I'm getting this thing for you, but she never thought or never was going to do anything about it. I hope I'm wrong. I absolutely hope I'm 100% wrong. But why hasn't she never briefed us on what happened on negotiations for hazard pay? Now, it's not Steve Mnuchin's job to tell us, I did not agree to hazard pay, because he did not propose hazard pay. She proposed hazard pay. She proposed hazard pay, not the Republicans. The Republicans don't want it because it's clearly not in their bill. So they're not going to say, we told her we don't want it. They never talked about it. She's the one who writes it in the bill. She's the one that millions of viewers are now watching, wondering, where am I going to get my $10,000 for hazard pay? Okay, how about you give us an update about hazard pay? Crickets? Yeah, you hear those crickets? I know it's daytime, but, I have no sound effects. Crickets. Where's your accent from? Crickets. There's no talk about hazard pay. It's very likely that this is among the provisions that never was going to see time of life under any negotiations, strategic plans for Nancy Pelosi. Because as you sit here right now, you have to think about, first of all, the Republicans have really, they've gone to the mat for FPUC at $400 a week, $300 a week, $400 a week, $200 a week, $300, $400 a week. They've gone to the mat over dependents stimulus checks at $500 a week, not $1,200 a week. They've literally nitpicked every single dollar. We have, and so unto that, do they want to pay $10,000 for essential workers for hazard pay? Let's continue with the Republicans. Mitch McConnell wants to have a insurance liability provision that ensures you can't sue employers because of a hazardous work environment. That's just sort of like an anti-hazard pay bill. It has always manifested itself every time we've heard anything from the Republicans. So that indicates clearly that they don't want hazard pay. So how has Nancy's strategic negotiations gone with hazard pay? I don't think it's gone anywhere. I mean, because we've never heard anything. Here's what's also deeply troubling. If you think about the logic of hazard pay and the logic of what she said, they don't match up. They're contradictory. I'll tell you why. Hazard pay has multiple provisions, and two of the provisions talk about going forward. The first one is to ensure that the workplace is safe going forward. This is a bill introduced in May or June. 90 days ago it was passed in the House to protect essential workers going forward so that they're not in a hazardous work environment going forward. Hello, it's August. They don't have those protections in place. The bill hasn't been passed. Nancy said yesterday, wait till January. So are essential workers supposed to work in a hazardous environment all the way to January under this scenario? I'm getting hot just thinking about this. That's the first part. Second part of hazard pay is they're supposed to get $13 an hour going forward. Going forward from when? January? It's nothing. Everything that's in hazard pay was to compensate people from January up to the present of that bill for what they got, to compensate them for their work in a hazardous work environment as essential workers, but to also ensure that they have job protections for purposes of essential workers in a hazardous environment going forward. It was to ensure that the workplace was safe going forward. Well, it's August. Going forward when? 2 years from now? You see what's going on here. It doesn't make sense. The lack of urgency for Nancy Pelosi for hazard pay, which really is to protect people, is not apparently there. Chuck Schumer's trying to get Broadway actors, Broadway relief, so they could, do a monologue and sing some songs. Nancy's trying to do something with a postman. And you're sitting here wondering, okay, I'm working as a grocery store worker. I'm risking my life. I didn't get compensated for hazard pay before. What's going to happen going forward? This is August, Nancy. I'm in the grocery store. I'm risking my life every day. Are you telling me I'm not getting hazard pay until January of next year? The easiest answer to this entire video is answering the question, which Nancy Pelosi has never done. What did Steve Mnuchin offer for hazard pay throughout these entire negotiations? What did you offer? How did you negotiate it? What did you negotiate about? What did you do? If Nancy Pelosi's position is we walked in the room and said, hi, hazard pay, here's our bill, and Steve said no, okay, done, thank you, that was what you did, then you really didn't care about these workers. That's not, when you don't negotiate, as she has not done, you really don't care. I want viewers to understand as you sit here right today, and I know this is hard to grasp, hard to hear, but we need to start having people, news reporters, broadcast anchors, print reporters, the guy at the taco stand on the corner, start asking these politicians when they're appearing on their interviews, how about hazard pay? I mean, I've been saying this for now for 3 weeks. Why can no reporter ask these people about hazard pay? If you go to Google News, which LALATE is in, if you go to Bing News, which Google is in, and you type in hazard pay, guess who comes up? Us and no one else, because there's no one's talking about hazard pay. So it's inherently confusing as to how to guess what the hell's going on with this negotiation skills of the Democrats, or two people. Coming up next is, a lot more clearer things today. I'm not leaving the subject. I want to make very clear, I'm not leaving hazard pay. No matter how much lack of clarity we have about this, I need you to start getting your getting your fingers moving. Go to the front of this channel and like and subscribe to this channel, but go on social media and start tagging, Cuomo and Lemon and, whoever you like to watch, your Fox people, your, MSNBC people, whoever you like to watch, and say, hey, can you ask them about hazard pay? I mean, why are you not asking people about hazard pay? Tag the Times, New York, LA, Chicago, Tribunes, this Tribune, and say, hey, ask them about hazard pay. And then maybe we can get some clarity, because if people don't want to answer the questions, then maybe it's not happening. Go to the front of the channel, like and subscribe, and then coming up next after this is PUA and LWA that has more clarity than this hot mess. As always, stay informed, stay motivated, stay smiling, and stay with LA for more.